like to invite up Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett. You are in for a treat today. I've known Reverend Linda as a colleague. She's an ordained Unity minister, but I really got to know her years ago in my first ministry when I was in Lawrence, Kansas. I had a member of my congregation who had a brother who was homeless in the San Antonio area. That member of mine found out her brother had died and needed someone to facilitate a service. I looked up Linda because at the time she was the minister at San Antonio, and I'll never forget Linda. I called and explained the situation, and she said, "How may I serve?" and was able to serve that family and that situation beautifully. Linda is the author of several books. She most recently has served as the vice president of our prayer ministry throughout the whole Unity movement, known as Silent Unity. She's been in, yeah. Another great accomplishment, she and her husband have been married how many years? 43 years. There's a lot of great accomplishments. And she's not that old either. So it's my joy to welcome you and to have the opportunity to experience. Would you join me in welcoming Reverend Linda Martella-Whitsett?
Wow. That's a memory I didn't have, so thank you for that. Oh, beautiful, the way we connect. Well, friends, first of all, I have just felt so welcomed here. I feel like I landed home with you. I really do. I don't say that everywhere I go, but really, the spirit of you, the way I most experience the divine is in the presence of others. And man, are you beautifully divine. Are you beautifully reflecting that to me? So thank you. Your music, your messaging here, it just touches my heart deeply because it's so consistent with my own understanding. So thank you for the gift of you today. I bring greetings from Silent Unity, where I just recently retired, just like 2 weeks ago. Not from life, of course, but just from full-time employment. But boy, my colleagues and friends there at Silent Unity, someone is sitting in silence right in this moment. Every hour of every day, someone is praying, several someones are praying on the telephones right now with people who call with need, prayer need. Many people are answering prayer requests that come in electronically. We're talking about 1.3 million every year. So know that light of Silent Unity is always shining for you, but it is you. You are Silent Unity because your prayer consciousnness contributes to global health, peace, and well-being. So I say hello from all of Unity headquarters. So secondly, what are we going to talk about here today? I have this memory. 2 years ago, I walked through an IKEA store for the first time. I was a virgin IKEA shopper. And I didn't get very far before I started breathing very fast. My heart started racing when I looked at this gorgeous armoire. And then I looked at all the gajillion pieces and parts it took to put that thing together, and that's when it started, right? Walking through the store, we were looking for a sofa sleeper, which we ended up buying for the first time, a piece of furniture for us to assemble ourselves at home. Well, so Giles and I, my husband Giles and I, we took out the 24 pages of instructions. Holy cow. We did real well up until about page, 12, something like that, taking one direction at a time, fitting one piece together. It was going great. When we turned the page to 13, we couldn't get it to work. Something was not working. And we kept thinking, well, what could have gone wrong? So we turned back to the previous page and looked at our assembly and realized we had put a piece on upside down. Now, you know just as well as I, if you put it on upside down, and if we had tried to make that work and kept going, that piece of furniture would never turn out to look like the cover, the picture on the cover, right? It would never work. So, I started thinking, because, I'm a metaphysician. So everything that happens in my life, I look at the metaphysical meaning, like what else, not to make myself to blame for doing something, but more as, how does this apply spiritually for me, right? So I started thinking about, where have I had upside down thinking? Right? That's where I go. It's like, that could preach, right? So here I am to say, I started thinking about this, and my daughter and I were writing the book, This Life is Yours. I was thinking with her about this idea of upside down thinking, and we realized that we, the collective we, all of humanity, is subject to the greatest upside down thought. Let's just say the one that operates under the surface of every human being. I am only human. I am only human. This, to me, is the greatest disservice that we do to ourselves. But we didn't have the idea ourselves. It was given to us, right? So Alicia, my now 40-year-old daughter, and I, she's a Unity kid, right? She grew up through Unity with these teachings. So Alicia and I started thinking about all the ways we were given the message. Even a Unity kid got this in the world around her. This message that operates underneath all of humanity. I'm only human. I'm only human. The religious thought takes it even one step further. The religion that most of us have been exposed to in Western civilization at least, which is not only are we only human, but humanity is basically broken and fallen. Now, this is a dominant theme in our culture, even though we don't subscribe to this in a Unity world, we're subject to it because it's underneath the surface of our awareness. Do you know what I'm saying? It's so subtle, it's so unconscious. And so our dominant theme in writing This Life is Yours, which is all about healing. And what is healing? It's repairing that fundamental message and turning it right side up, you see, because we realize that our culture has told us repeatedly that something is missing, wrong, or broken about us. And I'm not going to belabor this for too long, but just so for verification of it, I want to just suggest that we find this thinking not only in religion, most religion, but we find it also in our Western medicine, where, when you go to the doctor, they're determined to find something wrong with you. I mean, actually, it's their job to find something wrong that can be fixed. You know what I mean? Now, there are cultures, Eastern medicine is so very different. Eastern medicine says, let's talk about how to keep you well. Let's talk about your wellness and how we can manage to preserve that and champion your wellness, right? So it could be different. And think about our penal system. Whew. It's all about punishment. It's all about, it's not, we have the great thoughts about rehabilitation and we want that, but when it comes down to it, and especially in the disparity of how justice is disseminated in our country, which I'm not going to speak further about right now, but think about the messaging of, you're going to pay for your mistake. You've got to pay for your mistake. You're broken in some way. And, there's I think it's a mythology, but there's a story about a culture, and let's just say it's a possibility of what about a culture in which when someone is accused of a wrongdoing in the community, the community gathers around them and places them in the middle of a circle and reminds them of who they truly are and invites them to make up for the wrongdoing by actually doing some good, by bringing some service to the community. Now, whether or not that exists somewhere in the world, isn't that a possibility? Isn't that something that I can certainly imagine it as a totally different way of dealing with the mistakes? Anybody here is going to raise your hand and say, you never, ever made a mistake. Never, ever did something, quote, wrong. So for me, as my daughter and I really dwelled on this, it became so important for us to think about what are the effects of this consciousness, this pervasive thought, I'm only human, which implies weakness, it implies powerlessness, it implies limitation, doesn't it? I'm only human. Well, some of the effects are, because we teach, Unity teaches the law of mind, which says, what I dwell upon, I get more of that, right? What I'm harboring becomes operative in my whole being, right? So when I'm subject to this idea, I'm only human, and when I buy that, when it gets inside and it's harbored as a dominant thought, even in unconscious thought, then it plays out in more of that. I start to build a book of evidence about it. I see where that's the way it is, and I start to operate like that. But it gets even more troubling. I hand this over to the next generation. I give this body of thought to them. Not consciously. Look, my son, too, he was raised in Unity, too. And he told me when he was a young man, I don't buy that religion stuff. I'm done with it. I don't want it evermore. And I'm like, honey, what happened? Because, I thought, we're all about seeing your goodness. We're all about being the champion of your divine identity. Like, what happened? He says, all I ever got in church was how I need to be different and I need to be fixed. And my jaw dropped. I didn't think that was the message we were sending, but there is, in the message of transformation, sometimes the implication that I'm not okay as I am, right? I have to be different. I have to be better. I have to change. And that's what he got. Sad to me. So even when it's unwanted, that message can affect the next generation, and it continues to operate under the surface of humanity, right? And ultimately, it changes what is possible in the world around us. Ultimately, there's a sort of a long-term effect of that it takes consciousness work to turn around. So this book is all about healing, and the message is all about healing. So here's what happens. The real final effect of this pervasiveness of this message is we get to a place in our humanity where we cry out for a Savior. Because we can't save ourselves from that thought, I'm only human. It's such a depleting message that the world looks for a Savior. And so to me, when I get into metaphysics around this idea, I start to see, where the turnaround can be for us. So to heal is to turn around, right? To heal is to resolve that issue of only humanness. To heal is to save ourselves, really, with the message, with the principles of unity. Applying the law of mind, applying prayer, which is a transformation of thought, right? Prayer at its best transforms our thought from upside down, I'm only human, to right side up, I am fully human, yes, and I am divine. I land in healing, in wholeness, in oneness. Does this make sense to you? You know, if I'm operating as an only human, I'm subject to all the limitations of my humanity. I have some limitations, how about you, in my human experience. When I begin to turn my mind toward a greater me, a me that includes my humanity, but is beyond my humanity, my greater nature that is divine, I'm suddenly freed from the constraints of only humanness. You've experienced this, right? In meditation, perhaps, in so many practices that you do that get you in touch with the mystical reality of that part of you that is invisible, therefore not physical. That part of you that is spiritual. Spirit in this place. The Spirit in this place. The Spirit in this place. Right? And I don't know about you, but it's so easy to tune into my physical. I mean, here it is. Right? It's so apparent. Much more intention is needed, on my part for sure, to attune to the spiritual of me. My aura, my essence, my vibration, my emotional life, my divinity. How about you? It's so subtle. It's so subtle that it requires some attention on our part. So healing is attending to the spiritual of me, such that I can integrate my humanity and my divinity and find that I am whole. Does this make sense to you? To me, this is the whole point of healing, and it's the whole meaning of healing. It's not to make myself whole, for wholeness is already there. Human, divine, physical, spiritual, it's already there. But it is my capacity to attune to that wholeness that constitutes healing. Right? And so to change my thinking from the thought of healing as some kind of a zap of the divine, right? God zaps me and all of a sudden I'm better, you know? As if it's magic. That's magical thinking. But healing doesn't happen to me. It's not something that's going on outside and being given to me. Healing is my acceptance of the great right side up idea. I am fully human and fully divine. I am whole. So what does that do for us? To accept that, what does it do for us? Well, for one, for me, when I perceive myself as only human, I'm subject to all the limitations of that. I can only do so much. Like on Sunday mornings at Unity of San Antonio, which was the last time I was every single Sunday speaking at my church, right? If I had a sleepless night the night before, which I often did because the message was working in me, ministers are nodding their heads, that message was in me before it came out of my mouth on Sunday morning. And so I had many sleepless nights with just the message moving. So my physical vitality in the morning was pretty low. You know, after a sleepless night, I'm like, oh, now I got to do Sunday. Whoa, how's that going to work? If I saw myself as an only human, it would be very difficult. But I knew and I attuned to, from my unity practice, to this dimension of me that is not limited to humanity. I saw the spiritual reality of infinite vitality was at my disposal. Just like the air around me is, all I do is breathe it in, and I can breathe. I can just breathe in vitality. It's the same way. It's just turning my mind to it that healed my human thought of sleepfulness or sleepiness, sluggishness, any of the words you might put with after a sleepless night. I healed that thought immediately upon turning to infinity and seeing that I'm not only human, I am spiritual. Let me attune to the spirit of vitality, divine life that is right now an ever-flowing reality in my body, in my mind, and I am that. And I didn't have any issues. Nobody knew I had had a sleepless night. I had all the vitality that I needed for that morning. And I will say, when I went home that afternoon, I had an extraordinary nap. Loved it. So you see, this is the message, and you know this message. This is our message. Everything you need is already at the ready. There's nothing missing, wrong, or broken about you in any way, in any aspect of your life. And so it is an example for me that I can share with you is a man in my community in San Antonio who received a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. He was a member of my board, so we worked very closely together, and he would come to me and we would pray, we would sit and we would talk, and he would inquire within about, how does he manage this, right? And so, the short story, the short ending of the story is he learned very quickly to pay attention to what his physical capacity was at any time, but not being hampered by his physical capacity, to also know his spiritual capacity at any time. So how this worked for him was very simple. To say, I am no longer going to focus on the idea that something is wrong in my body. I'm not going to focus on this disease as anything that I identify with as mine. Instead, when I wake up each morning, I'm going to wiggle my toes and stretch my hand. If I can move, if I can put my legs out of the bed and stand up, I will do what I can do physically. On a day when I cannot do that, if my body's not cooperating with that idea of physical movement, I have a whole spiritual realm of possibilities. And so in that, what can I do when I'm resting in bed on that day that is championing my divine life and wholeness and well-being? Well, he learned he could turn his mind to each of his family members, and he can lift them up in a prayerful mind. He can shine the light of love that from him, from the reservoir of love that he is. He can shine that on each of his beloveds. All of this taking place right here spiritually. He can plan for, the next opportunity that he might have to write or to speak or to do whatever was his inspiration to do. There were so many things that he was capable of spiritually. And by doing that, by attending to a particular spiritual practice, he learned heart math so that even there, having to rest during the day, he could tune in to the condition of his heart, and he could beam the well-being and love all around him. He did a variety of spiritual practices that had him focused on wholeness. He had to do a lot to attend to his physical needs. He had doctor's appointments. He had protocols, right? But how many times when we're dealing with an illness process does it feel like our life is consumed? Our hours every day are consumed with having to take care of our physical selves. Well, he learned to devote equal amount or more attention to his spiritual nature and to foster his well-being by being devoted to his wholeness, to divine life that he was. And in that practice, he is still today thriving. So I say this to you because the book has a whole alphabet of 15-minute practices. And why? Because 15 minutes is enough time to interrupt the signals of the human-only pattern of thinking, right? To interrupt that thought of our insufficiency long enough that we can turn our mind to wholeness, the truth of our being, right? And to get on the side, the right side up of our life, honoring our human, absolutely honoring and devoting the care and attention that the human experience requires, while not neglecting our spiritual nature and all that becomes possible, an infinity of life, love, wisdom, strength, and all that we could need. Right there at the thought of it. But this requires some practice, does it not? And the more I practice, the more readily that spiritual nature is available to me. And so, friends, I just say to you in closing, gosh, I have so many things I could say. Well, I have this acronym for HEAL that I'll just suggest. H, harbor the thought of wholeness. Harbor, hold the thought of fully human, fully divine, fully physical, fully spiritual, whichever way you want to say that. Harbor that thought, wholeness. H. E, express it. Express that. Express the principle of wholeness. Embody wholeness with practice. Embody wholeness in the way you understand that even though you're going through something in your physical experience or in your human experience, that wholeness is regardless of that experience, right? A, affirm, and more important, be accountable for embodying that principle. Find an accountability partner. Call yourself to spiritual integrity of practice and conforming your words, your thoughts to yourself, your affirmations to wholeness, to that idea, to that truth. And L, live. Live fully. Live fully. Understand what it means to be alive and live fully, not just in the limitations of an only human. Live the full physical and spiritual self of you. Live. Live. So friends, you get this message when you come here. If you're studying the principles, you get this message all the time. But I want to say to you, if you're sitting in a place right here and now, and those of you who are here in the cyber world, right? The Zoomosphere, I call it. If you're in the Zoomosphere right now, you know, I love that we're proving oneness in this way. We're proving omnipresence in this field together. So I'm so grateful that we're together in this space. So if you know someone, and maybe that someone is you, if you know someone who's really hurting right now, someone who is suffering from a condition called only human, if you know someone who's consumed with the thought of worthlessness or insufficiency, if you know someone who's feeling so exhausted from their physical condition that it's hard for them to see that they are divine, right? If you are or you know someone who is concerned that your failures have limited you or made you less than, If you are suffering in any way from the thought of limited human condition, I bless you and I invite you to turn for that person, maybe for yourself, to a greater truth. You cannot be only human. I know this because oneness is the great harmonizing principle. Divine love is oneness, and oneness expresses as wholeness. You are absolutely and gloriously human, and you are wondrously and gloriously divine. Learn it, know it, study it. If you're spending more of your time in your human, get into your divine. Get into your divine. This is where healing takes place. Healing takes place. I'm so very grateful to celebrate Sunday with you. And I'd love to take this message deeper now, if you're ready to do that, to devote a little time to a prayerful, meditative reflection. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. So just close your eyes. And do what you do to enter into a stance for prayer, your own posture for prayer as we begin. Let your breath be noticeable to you. Pay attention to your heartbeat and where you notice the pulse of physical life. Bless your breath, the spirit of life, ruha, the breath. Bless the inner universe of cells, tissues, and organs, your physical operating system. Bless the cells of your body. Notice and bless your emotions right now. Honor them. For whatever they are appropriate and essential. Feel the blessing that your body is to your life. I am fully human. Bring your awareness now to the edges of your body, to the skin, the largest organ in your body. Take your awareness there, where your skin meets the air around you. And there, just notice the sensations on the edges of your body. Maybe you notice the difference in temperature between your body and the air. Whatever you sense, just place your awareness there. And now, imagine you have an art eraser in your hand and you're just smudging the edges of your body to erase the perception of separation. So that you find the you that is physical just spilling out into the air around you, and you're no longer solid. You're a part of it all. eliminating the perception of a border between you and the rest of the universe. Opening to the infinity that is your true nature. I am spiritual. I am spirit. I am divine. To find yourself in oneness, in the kingdom of the heavens right now. The you that is you has expanded beyond physical. Invisible yet able to be experienced. The realm of oneness, of wholeness. And here there is no absence, there's only presence. Infinite love, infinite life, infinite order, infinite wisdom, infinity. We're going to pause for a few moments in silence now to just revel in our divine humanity. In this expansive awareness, knowing I am physical and I am spiritual. Look upon your physical being from this perspective and your body of human experience. Turn on the light of healing love, the light of strength and well-being and peace, the light of harmony. And any power, any principle that you might need. turn on the light of them, the healing light of spiritual power. Bathe in infinite wholeness. Remind yourself now as we close this time of prayer together and usher in all that comes next. I am whole. I am one. I am a divine human. And so it is. Amen.